Hello, thank you for stopping on my video. My name is Becky and this is Bex Reads. I post videos every 5 days and if I can manage, I will squeeze some in between. And today, I'm back with another collab for you. Today, I am bringing you a collab with 9 other of my favorite booktubers to share with you books that made us cry. This idea came along because I was thinking April showers bring May flowers. And I was like, showers, tears, books that made me cry. Dang, yes, connect the dots. We have Crystal, Daphne, Jackie, Jenn, Johana, Kaylani, Liezl, Michelle, and Neva. I will have everybody who is collaborating on this idea tagged down below, and I will also have a playlist link down below where you can find all of our videos in one place so you can binge the entire recommendations of books that made us cry. A variety of genres. I have some romance, some general fiction, and some middle grade to share with you. So I'm gonna start off with the books that had me sobbing. These books broke me emotionally and it took me a while to recover. And I think the book that did that the hardest for me was Hawthorne and Heathcliff by R.K. Riles. For about the first 70% of this book, it is a YA romance between Hawthorne and this boy named Max, who she dubs Heathcliff. They meet their senior year of high school, and Hawthorne has been going through it in life. Her parents abandoned her, and they left her with her uncle, who is very sick, and he is dying. So she doesn't want to form connections with people because she's afraid that if she does, they too will leave her. But she ends up forming a friendship with Max. He ends up working on her uncle's house during the summer and sort of fixing it up. And while he is there, they get to know each other and they form a romance. And then the last 30% of this book is years later. They are both adults and they sort of make their way back to one another through the trials that they've had to go through as adults. I really loved the friendship that evolved between Hawthorne and Heathcliff. You could really feel that building as they went along. I also really loved this because not only did it have to deal with a romantic relationship, but it explored family relationship and it explored how people deal with grief and how they go through that. And this book broke me down because at the time that I first read it, I had lost somebody very dear to me who I loved with all my heart, and the things that Hawthorne was going through and the things she was thinking mirrored what I was going through and thinking too. Not to the exact extent of what she was going through, but I felt the same things that she did. And just scene after scene after scene, I was just sobbing. And when I reread this in 2020 to try and figure out what my top 10 books of the decade were, this made my top 10 list again, and it still broke me to tears. Even years after the fact of grieving and getting past my loss as well as I could, it still had me sobbing. I highly cannot recommend this book enough. The next book that just broke me down in tears is The Fog Within by Nick Shamhart. This is a general fiction story. It is a book about Megan, who has autism. And this book is split up into 3 parts: her childhood, her adolescent, and her adult years. The author of this book's daughter is nonverbal, and so it was sort of his nod to what he would love for his daughter's life to be. He made it a note to say that this is not a representation of his daughter. It's not anything like what his daughter's life will be, but it's what he would aspire for her to be. If you don't read any other book on this list, please read this book. If you have a soul, you will cry at this book. The relationship between Megan and her father is goals. He is such this giant scary man, but he is such a teddy bear, and he does whatever he has to do to protect his daughter while still allowing her to live a normal life as possible. There is a scene at the end of this book involving spoons. Oh my god. Who knew a spoon could make me sob so damn much? I was sobbing throughout this entire book, but that scene with spoons had me like gasping for breath. For the books that just made me a leaky faucet. Like, these are books that while I was reading it, I wasn't like sobbing. It wasn't that intense of an emotion, but the tears just, they continued to stream down my face. and then they would stop and something else would happen and I would just feel them streaming down my face again. The first book is a middle grade sci-fi. It was one of my best books from last year, and that is The Last Quintista by Donna Barbahegera. This is the story of Petra, whose family is leaving Earth because an asteroid is about to hit and kill everybody, and her family has been selected to get on this spaceship and go recolonize a new planet. So her and her younger brother are supposed to be put into stasis, and they are supposed to be fed this information about the history of Earth, all the things that you could learn, so that when they get to this new planet, they will have all this information that will help them thrive. But along the journey, some bad people take over, and they pretty much strip all the children who are in stasis of their memories. They have no memory of anything that had to do with Earth, because they think if they're a blank slate, then they can mold their minds into however they want them to think. But when Petra wakes up, she is the only one who remembers who she is. She remembers everything that she learned on Earth. She remembers the stories that her grandmother told her. And she wants to try and keep those stories alive because the stories are a part of her. So when she finds this out, she is trying to get off the ship. And in doing so, she learns what happened to her brother along the way. And she doesn't want this to happen to any of the other kids who are on this ship as well. So she's trying to get them off to try and find the other people who are on a different spaceship that she believes are already on this planet. I listened to this on audiobook. I remember I was laying on the beach listening to my audiobook, and the tears were just streaming down my face. The emotion of what she was leaving behind and the emotions that she was feeling when thinking about her brother and what had happened to him, just waterworks. I would stop and then another scene would pop up of her remembering her family, remembering the stories that her grandmother had told her, and just tears. Just constant tears. The next book that just had me crying is The Epos King by Grace Draven. So I know when a lot of people talk about the Radiance series by Grace Draven, they talk mostly about Radiance. And I feel like The Epos King just does not get its love that it deserves. This book is so good. It is about Saravek and Aniset. Saravek he's just gaga for Aniset. He thinks she is the most beautiful woman he has ever seen, and he is always flirting with her, and she doesn't get it. She is a Kai warrior, so she has gray skin, much like Brishan. She's got like silver hair, she's got claws, she's got the glowing eyes. She just looks at Saravek, and while she's attracted to him, she doesn't want to be, because he is just a human. And she doesn't think that they will ever have anything between them, because she could literally tear him apart. They have to go on this journey to get this priest to his homeland people where he can have his resting place. And they get to know one another as they do. And she gets to see a side of Saravek that really endears him to her. And meanwhile, he is just constantly flirting with her. He is constantly trying to get this woman to see him as somebody who she could be in a relationship with. I wanted them to just get their crap together and just acknowledge, especially Aniset. I'm like, woman, just acknowledge your feelings for him. And some of the things that they said to one another just made me cry. But in particular, there is a scene, once again, with a hair ribbon. I don't know what it is about me and just random objects in books, but the way the authors are able to make something so simple, so emotionally impactful, just tears, again, streaming down my face over a freaking hair ribbon. And his term of endearment for Aniset, he calls her Firefly Woman, because her eyes glow like fireflies, and it is just so freaking sweet. And this book really deserves more love within the series than it gets, because this relationship is so good and so tear-worthy. And the last book I have to share with you in this category is another middle grade, and that is Umbrella Summer by Lisa Groff. I will actually have a reading vlog I did for middle grade March linked down below, where you can go and see me crying about this book. So in this, we are following Annie, who is, I think she's 10 years old, but her brother recently died. He got hit by a hockey puck, and he had a heart condition that nobody knew about, and it caused him to die. So that has led her to be very anxious. She is constantly afraid that something's going to happen and she's going to die next. So throughout this book, she is dealing with the relationships between her friends. Her friends really are just trying to live their lives and they don't understand the loss that she experienced. She is building a friendship, a very unlikely friendship, with her elderly neighbor who also lost her husband, and so they form a relationship like that. This book had me sobbing multiple times as well, because a lot of it was just very close to home hitting for me and how my family has sort of reacted to losses in our lives. This is a book I think would be great for younger readers to read, especially if they have suffered a loss of any kind, because I'm sure they could sympathize with a lot of the emotions that Annie is feeling in this book. The next two categories are books that made me cry just a couple of times, but there were certain moments or certain things that were said within the books that just, they made me cry for a really long moment. And then sort of the rest of the book I was fine, but they did make me cry. So I'm going to share these next two books as a pair because they are within the same series, and that is Storm of Fury and Master of Storms by Beck McMaster. This is book 4 and 5 of the Legends of the Storm series. This is a dragon shifter fantasy romance that is set in like historic Iceland about this sibling group of dragon shifters who have been pretty much shunned from their kingdom because their mother is incredibly evil and they are trying to win back their place in their kingdom. So Storm of Fury is sort of the odd book out within this series because it doesn't follow one of the siblings. It follows Tormund, who works with one of the siblings. He is a dragon hunter, and in this book he is working with the other siblings to track down their brother Marduk, who has been missing for a while. And then he encounters Brynn, who is a Valkyrie. And she is trying to make her way back into the good graces of the Valkyrie Sisterhood by delivering Marduk to the Dreki princess, who he pretty much shunned. So that is her mission. They're both trying to find this Dreki prince, Marduk, but they both have different purposes for it. When Brynn meets Tormund, he is just a human. So she thinks he's attractive. Once again, she's attracted to him, but she doesn't want to be. And he is instantly besotted with her. He thinks she is the most beautiful woman he has ever seen. Much like the Abos King, this one is. So he is flirting with her and things like that, and she is just denying it. The thing that made me cry in this is Tormund, his character. A lot of the things that he felt and thought I could totally relate to. He never thinks he's going to find that lasting love that his parents had, but he's sort of come to terms with, you know, if that doesn't happen, that's fine, I will just be this great uncle. And then he meets Brynn, and it's the first time that he might think that it's going to happen for him, but she's immortal pretty much. So a lot of the things he felt, just, it made me cry. And then we get to Master of Storms, which is Marduk's story. And in this, we meet him and we meet the Dreki princess that Brynn was trying to capture Marduk and send back to. Her name is Solveig, I think it's Solveig. Solveig. So these two were supposed to be mated as part of an alliance between their kingdoms. Marduk went to the kingdom to choose between one of Solveig's sisters and herself to be his mate. And he ended up choosing Solveig, but then he disappeared, and this upset her. She had a vendetta against him. So she is very annoyed by the fact that he picks her to be his mate, and she doesn't want anything to do with that, but she can't help it. They're mated now, but then he leaves her. So she is out on a plot for revenge, but once she finds him, they have to go to this other court to try and build an alliance with them. And they have to pretend like they're madly in love so that their union comes across as strong and unbreakable to this other court. And we all know what happens when you pretend to be in a relationship and pretend to have more feelings than you actually do. The thing that brought me to tears with this is their relationship, because there is something wrong with Marduk. He is not able to feel that strong mating connection to Solveig that she eventually feels for him. And she's wondering, like, why? If we are destined mates, why do I feel this and he doesn't? Because in this society, it's always the males who know first. And he just doesn't. And the way that he treats her, and he's like, I don't care if we ever feel this. I want you to be happy, and I want to be with you. It happened to her mother, where her mother was mated to her father, but they weren't true mates. And then one day her true mate showed up, and it was a forced situation that her mother ended up being in. So she does not want that. She does not want to be mated to Marduk in love and then have her true mate suddenly appear one day and have that pulled away from her. So it was just the dynamic of them pushing and pulling on each other and trying to get them to come to terms with their relationship that made me cry. The next book I have to share with you that had a scene in it that made me cry is I Married a Naga by Regine Abel. This was my favorite book of last year. I have a whole 6-star in-depth review of it, which I will link down below. This is about Serena and Zero. I always mess up his name despite him being my favorite character. But Zero is a snake man, and he lives on this planet, and Serena is a hunter. She is sent to his planet to take care of this very deadly infestation of this creature, but she's told she cannot cross a certain barrier because if she does, she will end up dying because of the treaty they have. One day she's out, and something forces her across this barrier. So to stop her from being killed for crossing the barrier, she enters into an arranged marriage with Zero. And immediately she is just thinking, I will just do this for 6 months and then I will go on my merry way. However, Zero, he is a man of his word. And he made a vow to the people around him, to his gods, that he would be her mate and take care of her. And so right off the bat, he is like, I'm going to do whatever I have to do to convince this woman that we are meant to be together. And she is going to fall so hard in love with me that she's not going to want to leave. And that's what he does. He does this with a vengeance, and it is so sweet to see. So the thing that made me cry about this is the ending. The ending where something happens and Zaro is like, I want you to be safe and healthy and happy. And if that's not with me, then I will let you go. And that just, oh, it made me cry. I was like, oh, Zaro, you're such a great guy. And it made me cry because I felt their chemistry and I was so invested in this couple's relationship. For him to be like, he was so in it and he was refusing to give her up throughout the entire book. And then at the end, it's just like, if you want to leave and it'll make you happy, I'll let you go. And the last book I have to share with you is one that, again, made me cry at a particular scene. And it's a classic. It's a children's classic. One of my favorites. And that is Charlotte's Web. Do I need to even tell you what scene just broke me down? Do I? And if you don't know what scene I'm talking about, then go read Charlotte's Web and you'll understand the scene that made me cry as a child. And still to this day, whenever I watch the movie, whenever I read this book, I still cry. I swear, if you read this book and you don't cry at that scene, something is broken inside of you. Please go to therapy, because if you don't cry at that scene, how? Tell me how. It's not a hardship for me to cry at books, but it takes a certain book to make me cry. And I will go months without crying at all at a book. And then something will hit me, and sometimes 3 books in a row, I will cry like a freaking baby. I hope you enjoyed this list of books. Let me know down in the comments if you've read any of these, if they made you cry, or what is a book that has made you cry. I would be interested to know. If you don't feel like commenting any of that, just leave me a teardrop emoji. And once again, thank you to all my fellow collaborators on this project. Be sure to check out their videos linked down below and the playlist linked down below as well. And until my next video, thank you so much for watching, and go cry at a book for me. Bye.